It was 11:51 p.m. I was in my test kitchen, wiping down the stainless steel after a 16-hour development day, my back aching. My phone buzzed on the counter. I glanced at the screen. A group text. From my mother, Cynthia. It was just a few words. Cold pixels on a bright screen. Nora, your father and I have discussed it. After your behavior, we've agreed. You are no longer part of this family. We're done. I stared at it. The smell of burnt sugar and citrus still in the air. I was trying to process the words when a new notification popped up. A small red heart, reacting to her message. From my sister, Emery. That was the moment, the click, the end of a lifetime of trying. Have you ever given every part of yourself to your family, only to be treated like you were disposable? Let me know your story in the comments below. My hands weren't shaking from sadness. It was ice. I didn't cry. I didn't text why. I just walked over to my office laptop, pulled up a stool, and opened the screen. The glow lit up my face. 11:53 p.m. I logged into my personal banking portal. I saw the primary checking account, the one that funded their entire life, the one I was the sole signatory on. I clicked transfers. The scheduled payment sat there, waiting for the first of the month. Monthly transfer, $8,000, Cynthia and Mark. I clicked cancel series. A small box popped up. Are you sure? I clicked confirm. One click. Done. 11:55 p.m. I logged into the Amex corporate account for my restaurant. I navigated to manage cards. Two names glowed under mine. Emery. Additional card. Status active. I clicked deactivate. Cynthia. Additional card. Status active. I clicked deactivate. 11:57 p.m. I logged into the utility portal for the historic urban loft, the one I bought 3 years ago. When my father was laid off, the one they lived in, rent-free, autopay on. I clicked it off. 12:03 a.m. I opened my email. One last message. To my building security manager, subject unit 12 amperes, access codes. I wrote, please change all lobby and elevator access codes for my unit immediately. All guest privileges and keys for Cynthia, Mark, and Emery are to be revoked. Effective now. I hit send. Then, I turned off my phone. The silence in the kitchen was absolute. This wasn't a breakdown. It was a balance sheet. You see, I didn't feel anger. Not the hot, screaming kind. What I felt was clarity. This wasn't a family dispute. It was an audit. For years, I wasn't just Nora, the chef daughter. I was the silent investor, the one who bought the historic urban loft when my father, Mark, was laid off, so they wouldn't lose their home. The one who paid for Emery's equipment when she decided she was a brand influencer. The one who funded her breakup party trip to Tulum last month. My whole life was a series of these quiet transactions. I remember when I was 12. I won my first regional cooking competition. The prize was a $500 scholarship. My parents told me, "That's nice, Nora, put it in the bank." A week later, my sister, Emery, who was 9, got a C in art class. My parents bought her a brand new laptop. To encourage her creativity, I just went back to practicing my knife skills. When I was 25, trying to get my first restaurant off the ground, I was working 100-hour weeks, sleeping on flour sacks in the pantry. My father came in, looked at the empty dining room, and told me I needed a backup plan. 2 years later, when Food and Wine gave me a mention, I overheard my mother, Cynthia, telling her friends at a party, "Oh, she gets all her talent from me." They never saw the work. They only ever claimed the reward. My father gave me exactly one thing in my entire life: his old, battered cast iron skillet. It was rusted, caked in grease, and he was going to throw it in the trash. I was 14. I asked if I could have it. I spent a week with steel wool and salt, burning my hands, until I got it down to the raw metal. I re-seasoned it, again and again, until it was black and glossy. It was the first thing I ever mastered, the only thing I ever got from them that I had to make valuable myself. And as I sat there, in the silence of my kitchen at 1 a.m, I finally understood I wasn't just the quiet daughter. I was the scapegoat. In a family system, there's often a golden child, the one who is charismatic, fragile, and free, the one who carries all the family's hopes. That was Emery. But for that to work, there has to be another, the scapegoat, the one who has to be competent, the one who has to carry all the financial and emotional weight, the one who gets the blame. My paying for everything wasn't generosity. It was my assigned role. And that text, that 11:51 p.m. text, it wasn't just an attack. It was a severance package. I slept for 3 hours, woke up, and made coffee. I let my phone charge, staring at the blank screen. Then, I turned it on. It was like opening a dam, a wall of fire, 40 missed calls, dozens of texts. The first ones were from Emery. 7:02 a.m. What the fuck, Nora? My card was declined at brunch, turn it back on. 7:04 a.m. Are you serious? You're always so dramatic. Whatever mom said, you're taking it too seriously. 7:10 a.m. Nora, I swear to God, I'm leaving this restaurant and I can't pay. Fix this. Then came my mother. 7:30 a.m. Nora, you're overreacting. Your father is very upset. Turn the cards back on. We need to buy groceries. Don't be cruel. 7:35 a.m. And the code to the building isn't working. The doorman had to let us up. Fix it. Now. I scrolled through the messages. A cold pit forming in my stomach. I was looking for one word. Sorry. I was looking for one question. Why? It wasn't there. They weren't heartbroken. They weren't confused. They were inconvenienced. They weren't shocked by what they'd done. They were shocked that the service had been interrupted. I hadn't just been the scapegoat, I'd been the utility. I didn't reply to a single message. I just drank my coffee. That, apparently, was the wrong move. An hour later, my phone buzzed with a different kind of notification. Facebook. My mother, Cynthia, had written a public post, and she had tagged my restaurant's professional page. It's a sad, sad day when you give your child everything: a beautiful home, an education, all our support, and they grow up to be so ungrateful. Some people forget who raised them and would rather see their own family starve and be homeless just to feel powerful. We are just heartbroken by her cruelty. The comments were already flooding in. Distant un. Old, family, friends. Cynthia. I can't believe it. She's always been so intense. This is monstrous. Praying for you. Cynthia. She'll see the error of her ways. I stared at the screen. The post That changed everything. This wasn't a family drama anymore. This was a public attack on my reputation, my brand, my livelihood. She had brought my professional life into her personal war. She had just given me permission to do the same. I didn't call her. I didn't comment on the post. I opened my contacts and made a different call. The phone rang twice. Valerie? Valerie wasn't just my lawyer. She was a fixer. A shark in the food and beverage industry who had saved my restaurant during a supplier dispute. Her voice was like dry ice. Valerie, it's Nora. I have a situation. Family or business, she asked. It just became both, I said. I forwarded her everything. The 11:51 p.m. text, the bank statements from the last 3 years, the deed to the loft, and finally, a screenshot of the Facebook post. There was silence on the line for a full minute. I just heard the clicking of her keyboard. Nora, she said finally, her voice sharp. I'm looking at this. These people are tenants in a property you own, living on a stipend you provide. As of 11:51 p.m. last night, you are no longer their daughter? She paused. You are their creditor. How do you want to proceed? A small, cold smile touched my lips. Make it official. Valerie. Good. I could hear her smile. My team will draft the documents. 1. A formal 30-day notice to quit for non-payment of rent. 2. A formal demand letter for repayment of all personal loans. Itemized. What's the total? About $240,000. I said, good. She said again. And 3. A cease and desist letter for defamation. Referencing this Facebook post, to be served to Cynthia. We'll send it all to the loft. Certified mail. Thank you, Valerie. Don't thank me yet, she said. Just go to work. And don't answer your phone. I hung up. I picked up my chef's knives, my keys, and walked out the door. The fight was no longer in my kitchen. It was in hers. 2 days passed. The certified letters were delivered and signed for. The silence from their end was absolute. No texts, no calls, no angry voicemails. That should have been a relief. But it felt wrong. Too easy. On Friday, I was in the middle of evening service. My phone on silent in my office. When I finally got a break at 10 p.m., I saw 3 missed calls from Valerie. I stepped into the dry storage. The smell of flour and dried herbs filling my lungs. And called her back. She picked up on the first ring. Nora. Her voice was different. Not the dry ice lawyer. It was something else. Tense. Valerie, what's wrong? I was doing the full audit on your restaurant's business accounts. She said, all business. Just standard practice. Separating them from your personal assets for the case. I found something. Something like what? A loan. She said, a $50,000 line of credit. Taken out against your restaurant's assets 3 weeks ago. My blood went cold. I didn't take out a loan. I know. Valerie said, the signature on the document is yours. Nora, but I pulled your incorporation papers. It's not your signature. It's a forgery. A decent one, but it's a forgery. I leaned against a sack of rice. My knees weak. $50,000. Where? Where did the money go? My voice was hollow. It was wired to a high-end travel agency. Valerie said, air voice flat. A single purchase. 6-week culinary tour of Italy for 2. Booked in the name of. Emery. I almost dropped the phone. Emery's breakup. The crisis. The party I refused to fund. Valerie continued. That broken-hearted boyfriend of hers, he's listed as the +1. That breakup party wasn't a party. Nora, it was an alibi for grand larceny. I sank down onto the rice sack, the world narrowing to a single burning point. I finally understood Emery's crisis. Her breakup. It wasn't real. It was a tactic. It was the psychology of strategic incompetence. She'd failed so hard. She was so heartbroken that she needed a 6-week, $50,000 trip to recover. She knew I'd never approve it. Not after the restaurant's margins were so tight. So, she played the victim. She became the fragile one who couldn't cope. And my parents, Cynthia and Mark, they didn't just console her. They conspired with her. They stole from my business, my name, my reputation, to fund her fantasy. This wasn't just favoritism. This wasn't just gaslighting. This was a conspiracy. Nora, are you there? Valerie's voice cut through the fog. I'm here, I said, my voice shaking, but not with fear. With rage, a cold, clean, structural rage. What does this mean? Valerie. It means, she said, that this is no longer a civil matter. It's not about eviction anymore. It's criminal. You have a choice. We can use this as leverage for the settlement, or we can go to the district attorney. I stood up, brushing the flour from my chef's jacket. The fight was no longer about money. It was about my name. Leverage. I said, my voice like steel. Give them one chance to sign everything over. Or we go to the DA. I want them to know what they did. And I want them to know that I know. Valerie gave them the ultimatum. It was simple. Sign over the loft in a deed in lieu of foreclosure to clear the civil debt and agree to a binding repayment plan for the forged $50,000 loan. The alternative was simple. 2, she'd filed a criminal complaint with the district attorney. For a week, they ignored it. I imagined they thought I was bluffing, that this was just another Nora being dramatic moment. Then, Valerie, at my direction, alerted the bank's fraud department to the forged loan. The bank, seeing the evidence, didn't just freeze the line of credit. They froze all their associated accounts, pending investigation. That, it turned out, got their attention. It was a Sunday. I was in my new, much smaller rental apartment. I was testing a recipe, my hands covered in flour. There was a pounding on my door. Not a knock, a frantic, desperate pounding. I walked to the door and looked through the peephole. It was Cynthia, my mother. Her hair was a mess, her eyes red and puffy. She was the perfect picture of a victim. I opened the door. She lunged forward, trying to grab my arm. Nora, you have to stop this. You have to call that lawyer. That woman, I didn't move. I just looked at her. Her name is Valerie. I don't care what her name is, she shrieked. They're going to take the loft. Your father, they're talking about jail. They froze his accounts. We can't buy food. She was sobbing. Now, full-on theatrics, the kind she always used to get what she wanted. Please, Nora, she begged, her voice dropping to a whisper. Please, do something for your sister. You're ruining her. She's all alone in Italy. She's terrified. Do something for my sister. It was always. Do something for Emery. I had been doing something for them my entire life. And now, I calmly wiped the flour from my hands onto my apron. I turned, walked to my bag, and pulled out a single, folded folder. I walked back to the door and handed it to her. She ripped it open, her eyes scanning it. Despérate. Probably expecting a withdrawal, a new check, an apology, but her face went white. She was looking at a copy of the finalized criminal complaint, the one with her name on it, and my father's, and Emery's. I already did something, I said, my voice quiet, not angry, just. Finished. This is what you did. Cynthia, you have 24 hours to respond to Valerie's settlement offer, or this. This is what I file. She looked up from the paper, her eyes wide with a new kind of horror. Not sadness, not remorse. It was the look of someone who had just been finally, seen. You would do this, she whispered, clutching the paper. You would do this to your own mother. I looked at her, at this woman who had conspired to steal from me, who had disowned me, who had lied about me to the world. You told me I'm not your family. I said, so? You're not my mother. I pointed at the paper. You're just a person who stole from me. Goodbye, Cynthia. And for the first time in my life, I closed the door on her. The resolution was swift. It's amazing how quickly people find a pen when the alternative is a prison cell. Faced with criminal charges, they signed everything. The loft was sold in a cash deal 2 weeks later. The debts were cleared. The forged $50,000 loan was paid back to my restaurant's account. Emery was forced to fly home on her own dime, to a summons and a civil repayment plan. The noise was finally over. Tonight, my apartment is quiet, but it's not empty. I'm in my new kitchen. It's smaller than the loft, smaller than my restaurant's line, but it's mine. The air is warm, filled with the smell of roasting garlic and thyme, and the sound of laughter. Valerie is here, swirling a glass of wine. My old sous chef, the one who covered for me during the audit, is arguing with a food blogger about butter. These are the people who showed up. I'm at the stove, searing scallops. I'm using the old, battered cast iron skillet, the one my father was going to throw in the trash. For a minute, I thought about getting rid of it, thinking it was the last tie to him. But I kept it, because it was never his. It was mine. I was the one who saw its value. I was the one who scrubbed off the rust, who spent the time, who restored it. I'm the one who made it valuable. I look around the room at these people, my friends, my colleagues, my family. We're taught that family is the blood you're born with, that it's an obligation, a bond you can't break. But I learned that true family are the people who, when you build your own table, choose to show up. It's the people who choose to set a place for you. I'm not a scapegoat anymore. I'm just a chef. And I'm finally, completely, free. Nora learned that you have to cut the rot out to save the meal. If you've ever had to make a hard cut to find your own peace, tell me your story in the comments. And if you want more stories about justice being served, hit subscribe.